Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Slomka, and this is going to be our second lesson for personal finance, and we are going to be talking about the financial life cycle. I've already introduced the financial life cycle project to you, and so we're going to get a little bit more information that's going to kind of help us master and understand that topic so we can work through it and gain as much as we can from that project that we were talking about. So let's get started. So right here, what I have for you is I have got some slides that are going to be dealing with financial planning, but and more specifically the life cycle. I wanted to start off with this one because I really liked it. One of the major reasons why I liked it is because right here on the y-axis, what we have is your income, and on the x-axis, you have your age. And I want you to notice that right here, this dip right here, where it dips below the x-axis, that's when you are not making money, but rather you are spending other people's monies. And then right around here, 18, 20 years old, that's when you start making your own money. And then you can see some of those things that are going to be happening. And these topics right here across the top, these are the ones that we are going to be discussing together. That is your financial life cycle. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So right now, the portion of your financial life cycle that you are in is you are kind of coming out of that dip or that belly below the x-axis where we're not making money and you are going to be starting to get your job and making some money. You are in the high school phase. So some things you want to do, and a lot of things that you're going to do in your life, is you want to kind of try to develop some of those good habits early on. So you want to develop a plan for independence. That is something that you're going to want to write down and make sure that you're clear with so you can understand exactly how to achieve those goals. Start to set financial goals. We had talked about SMART goals last time. We had talked about short-term and long-term goals as well, and you need to make sure that you are keeping all of those in mind. You're going to prepare for a career and education needs. So this is definitely something you're going to want to talk to your parents about as well, because I'm sure that they have some things that are already going to kind of be started, and then you're going to work with them. Evaluate future needs, school, rent, marriage, travel. What are the things you want to do? How are you going to pay for them? Are there things that you are unrealistic, or is everything very doable for you? Develop personal system of recording. So this is another one of those things where you want to try to develop good habits. If you're just winging it, that's not exactly a good plan. And the likelihood is that you'll just continue to wing it. And so this is going to be an opportunity. This class in general is an opportunity for you to learn and make sure that you aren't just winging it, that you can build a budget and live by it and set goals and meet them and those kinds of things. Lastly, explore bank institutes. So if you don't already have a savings account, you should get one. If you don't already have a checking account, you should get one of those as well. If you don't know what a CD is, you might want to look into those as well. There's lots of different things that I want you to just try to take a look at. Go to the bank, get an account, try it out, and then you can learn a little bit from those kinds of situations. So there you go. There's a little bit of information, just a little graphic there for checking accounts. Checking accounts are great things. You're going to want to try to have one of those and a savings account because they are a little bit different and they work a little different. We're going to talk about both of those in a later lesson. Okay, next, this is what a lot of you guys are kind of looking forward to right now. It seems like you are at the end of your high school career and now you're moving towards this young adult phase. And what you're going to need to do here in this young adult phase is you're going to change the way that you're going to deal with your finances. So you're going to move away from maybe only saving to buy something that's special for you. And you are going to move towards having some real need in your life. So one of the things is you might need to establish some housing, and that for a lot of people means you need to pay rent. So because you're going to be renting an apartment or renting a condo or renting a house, and you're going to need to pay for that. Next, training for your career. So that could be college, that could be some sort of vocational school, that could be an apprenticeship, but you are going to need to do some training. That training right there might cost money, or you might do it for free. I'm not quite sure, but that is something that you need to make sure you're clear on. Earning financial independence. Starting to use credit. And this is incredibly important. You need to have used credit in order to acquire things like loans. They need to see how you do with your credit. They need to see if you're paying your bills. They need to see if you are maxing out your credit cards or if you are just being very conservative with them. They want to see all those kinds of things if you want to make larger purchases later on down the road. So it's important that you get started now on developing those kinds of credit habits. So that's something that I want you to look into as well. Determine insurance needs. So auto insurance is usually on the top of a lot of people's minds when they are in this age range, and it's probably on the top of your mind as well. And that's a great place to start. There are other things like renter's insurance as well that are very, very helpful. Life insurance, those kinds of things as well, you can look into, and then you're going to kind of start experimenting with those. Establish savings and investment tools. So savings, you're going to want to try to start building some of that nest egg. And the reason why is because there's some really big things that are coming up in the next phase. So I know right now you're excited for becoming a young adult, but in the next phase after that, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to want to spend your money on that are real big. Also investing tools. So the investing for your future, investing in the stock market, investing into stocks and bonds, all those kinds of things. You want to try to see if you can get started on those. Create spending plan, aka a budget. So a lot of times when you are a young adult like this, you are going to have a not so good paying job. And so that usually means that it would be a great idea to get a budget going. The other side of that coin is that when you are a young adult like this, you still might not have full independence from your parents. So that is another thing to think about. You're going to need to work with them on building that budget. And then the last thing right down here is repaying debt. So repaying debt right here, that one might be paying off a car, but it also is probably student loans and that kind of thing as well. You're going to want to try to pay those student loans if you can at that point, because when you are still in school, student loans are interest free. But when you leave school, that is when the interest starts to pile up, and that makes them more expensive to pay off. So there you go. Here's a little infographic again. Once again, you want to try to establish credit. That's an important thing. Over here, you have insurance. And like I said, car insurance is a big one for a lot of people, but there is other things like renter's insurance, home insurance, travel insurance, accident insurance, and those are all things you're going to want to take a look at. So that's important. Next, okay. This is the one that I have the most experience with, because this has been a large part of my life in the last couple of years, and I am kind of transitioning my way out of this one. So right now, as I had mentioned in the last slide, you're going to want to try to think about saving a little bit, which is hard to do. But right here, this is why. So some of the things you're going to be spending your money on in this adult with or without children's phase is you're probably going to need to get married, or you're probably thinking about getting married and paying for a wedding. And you're also going to be maybe thinking about children. And so all of these things are extremely expensive. So if you have any money that you can put towards an engagement ring or paying for a wedding, or you can put towards the fees that come along with giving birth to a child, you're going to want to make sure that you can have as much of that money already ahead of time as possible. It is going to be your best bet, as opposed to having to buy things on credit. Educational funds for children. So this was a big deal. You know, you have a brand new baby, and you're going to want to be able for that to have as good of a life as they possibly can. And for a lot of people, that means you want to be able to pay for their education. And the earlier you start, the better. So I started my my children's 529 accounts before they were even a year old. I wanted to get those accounts started, so as soon as their first birthday showed up, people could actually give us money for their birthday, and we could put that into their 529 accounts. Next, expanding career goals. So now you've kind of got your education out of the way. And so now it's time to really start focusing on your career and seeing if you can get that career that you are after, working your way up that corporate ladder. Number 5, manage increased need for credit. So this is where establishing that credit in the last phase is really going to pay off, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to buy maybe a new car or a bigger home, and you need to make sure that you have good credit and that you have a long history of credit to work with, so that people know that you are dependable and reliable, and that you're not just going to flake out and not pay off your loans anymore. This one, number 6, I'll be honest with you, this is one that I'm actually currently working on, even though I am older than 34, and that is creating a will. So it's not a fun thing. You don't necessarily want to create a will, but it is definitely an important thing, especially if you're starting to collect some of these things we're talking about in number 1 and number 2. You want to make sure that the money that you have is going to go to the places that you want it to go. After that, additional insurance needs. Life insurance. Life insurance is a big deal. This one I have taken care of. I took care of life insurance as soon as my daughter was born, who is my oldest. I wanted to make sure that if anything bad happened to me, that the insurance would help out with those kinds of things. I didn't want to leave anybody in a lurch. 8, Goals. So goals are going to change. So when you are younger, some of those goals that you have are so big, like I want to pay for college and I want to buy a car, but I don't really have a good job. Those goals are so big that they can be kind of hard to attain. But when you are transitioning into this adult phase right here, it's a bit interesting because one, you've actually worked your way through a couple of those bigger goals, like you may have paid for a wedding, or you may have gotten yourself through college, or you may have gotten yourself a car or two. And so the goals are going to kind of change a little bit. You are more comfortable making larger sums of money, your goal. And you can also, maybe you have a lot of those other things kind of taken care of. So you don't need to really focus on some of those goals, and you can change them to vacations and some of those more things that you're interested in wanting, not necessarily needing anymore. Like you need a college education, or you need a car for transportation. And then lastly, number 9, begin and or manage investments in emergency savings. So this is an important thing. Managing investments is an interesting thing. I'm definitely not a pro at that. I basically just call up my financial planner guy and I say, hey, how's it all going? And he gives me the thumbs up or he gives me the thumbs down. And so that's about as much as I can do, but I am looking forward to improving my skills and my knowledge with you guys this year. Emergency savings has always been something that's kind of an important thing for me. My wife calls me a doomsday prepper sometimes because I'm always trying to be prepared. And so you want to make sure that you have a couple bucks in the bank. It's harder to do when you're younger. Once again, you might not have as much money to work with, and you're really excited to do a lot of different things, and so it can be hard to save that money. All right, cost of raising children. So right here, this is another little infographic for you. It is $245,340 to raise a child to 18 years old. And after 18, they're probably going to need some more money from you. So it's an important thing. When we were getting started, my wife and I, with having kids, I'd never seen this before, but I can definitely vouch for this. One of the things that was particularly shocking to me, if you're looking at the way that you're going to be spending your money, I knew that my house was going to be expensive because it's big. I know that I like food and transportation, and I don't spend that much money on clothing. And healthcare is taken care of very nicely because I have a good job with good healthcare. This one right here was the crazy one for me. Childcare and education, 18%. That's higher than food. That's higher than transportation, and it's creeping up towards housing right there. So this is intense right here. You need to make sure that you are ready to be able to take on that childcare because it is crazy. So that's something to look out for. Here's the other one. This one probably is going to affect you a little bit more. Weddings. Weddings are very expensive, $30,000 for a wedding, especially around here. If you're planning on getting married in one of the nicer golf courses or one of the nicer venues around the area here, they are going to be expensive. So there's lots of money that you're going to need to pay out. So you have your fees for your reception, which is going to be about $13,000. You've got engagement rings, which are going to start off at $5,000, and you can go up from there. You might have some DJs or some other entertainment ideas, photo booth, that kind of thing. And those are going to give you another $3,000. And then you've got your decor, you've got those table coverings and the chair coverings and the flowers and all that kinds of things. And that's going to be another $2,000. So that is a lot of money. So you're planning on maybe getting married when you're 25, but that means you need to be saving when you're much younger than that. And that's actually what I ended up doing. When I was getting married to my wife, I had actually started off by planning to save money to buy a house. And then that house money, which I thought was a lot of money, so I could buy a nice big fat house, turned out to be an engagement ring. So yeah, the wedding stuff is very expensive, and you got to kind of have a little bit of a plan. I didn't necessarily have a very good plan. I had a bad plan, but I had enough money for my bad plan that it turned out to work out okay and turn into a good plan. Here's another one. If I needed about $50,000 when my 8-year-old is ready to go to college, I could. So you are once again kind of talking about saving to get your kids to go to school. You could save that money, and if you save that money, you're going to be paying maybe $236 a month, and that's if you start when they're 8. Like I said, I started before my daughter was 1, so I don't have to pay necessarily $236 a month. If you borrow it, you're going to be borrowing at $539 a month, which is a lot more money, but the result is the same. You're still going to end up with $50,000 when your child needs to go to college. So that is going to be a very, very different situation. In this first situation, because you're saving, you're actually going to be gaining interest. So you don't actually have to come up with the 50. You can actually come up with something that's much closer to $40,000, and then the interest will cover that last 10K, which is great. If you're borrowing though, you're going to need to pay more because you're not going to gain interest. You're going to lose out on interest. You're going to have to pay that interest back to the bank. So these are the things that you are going to want to try to think about. Same is true for housing and stuff like that and cars. If you can show up with a good sized down payment for a house or a car, that's always going to help you out in a big, big, big way, as opposed to showing up with nothing. You might hear all those commercials, zero down. That's a bad way to go. Show up with money to put down. Okay, this is kind of the spot where I am currently transitioning my way into. I'd love to say that I am actually a working parent or adult, but I don't know. I don't know if I can commit myself to that just at this moment. So what we have right here for number one, upgrading career training, back to school. You might want to work on starting your next career. Statistics show that more and more people are having more than one career as they move into their later years. So that might be the time when that transition is going to happen. Building educational fund for your children. So once again, a 529, you are going to want to make sure that that is building aggressively. You're putting a lot of money towards that. So your kid might not be going to daycare every day, and you might not have to pay for that anymore, but you are now paying all that money and more into your college fund. Expanding needs or need for greater income. So you are going to be maybe looking at a little bit of a side hustle, and you might need that money for some of the things that you want to do. Maybe they're fun things, maybe they're not fun things, but you might need that money. Establish retirement goals. So retirement is definitely something that you're going to want to be thinking about more as you get older and older and you start kind of seeing retirement in your future. I definitely started thinking about retirement before I was 35. That's definitely the case. I started thinking about retirement when I was 23 or 24 years old, but it is definitely something you want to think about as soon as possible, but it will become more prominent in your life later on down the road. Repay debts. So as I was talking about earlier, there are those student loans, and at some point you're going to need to start really kind of digging into those. If you can pay them when you're still in school, that's amazing, but a lot of times you can't. So it is at this point when you are a working parent that hopefully you've got that good job and you can start really kind of digging into those debts as well. This is where things get tricky because now you're trying to pay off debts and you're also trying to pay for your children to go to college, and that's why these side hustles and things like that, a second job or extra work responsibilities, are going to become more important to you. Emergency savings, investment tools, once again, these are going to change. So what was good emergency savings before is not so much. Maybe before you were making your emergency savings to have two people, maybe yourself and your significant other thrive and survive for a little bit, but now you might be having emergency savings to support four people because maybe you have two kids. Contribute more to investments. So as you are getting older and older and older, you're going to want to make sure that you have those investments as a key feature in your life. So you're going to want to put more and more money into them. Spending more on needs than wants. Yeah, this is a big one. This one's definitely hits me in the heart. I don't buy things for myself very often. What I do is I spend my money on the things that my family needs and what my kids want. But I don't really buy things for myself. I have a lot of things picked out for myself, but I don't buy them for myself. And number 9 right here, needs become home, auto, and food related. So this is, clothing your kids and transporting them and having a nice, safe home are going to be very important. Just in general, I want you to look at how long these lists are getting. So when we first started off, our lists were shorter, and now they are getting much longer. So take a look at that young adult list right there. We have only 7 things in there, and they are all pretty simple. And now that we are working our way up, we are starting to see some longer lists, and they've got a little bit more going on in each of them. You can just see, even if you blur your eyes, life gets a little bit more complicated. There you go. Here's a little bit of information right here. Kids don't need things. Kids need parents who spend time with them. Everybody falls into the pit though, and they all kind of buy things for their kids. It's just something that happens. But you want to try to keep that in mind. Share of families with debt. So couples with kids, the share of the family. 89% right there. Single with kids, 80%. Single with no kids, age 55 plus, 59%. So you can see that those percentage right there are going down, down, down as you have less to worry about. When, like I said earlier, when you are a couple and you have kids and you're trying to take care of 4 people now instead of 2, everything gets a little bit more complicated and you might need to go into a little bit of debt in order to take care of that. What is the most likely reason you have debt or are struggling with debt? I don't make enough money. There you go. That's a big one. That's something that most people can say. College was too expensive. College loans are really, really pain to pay off is when you get older and you start to kind of regret the choices that you made when you were younger. Cost of living is too high. My debt load keeps rising. I don't have a budget. I applied for a credit card and I can't afford. I don't know how to pay off my debt. So these are things right down here that you can kind of take care of, and hopefully we'll take care of together throughout this course. But some of these ones up here at the top are going to be things that you're going to be wanting to think about when you're making your college choices and stuff. All right, midlife right here. Saving for higher education for children. So once again, you are going to be looking at that 529. Evaluation of investments. You're going to want to include more and more investments if you can, an IRA, a Roth, on top of your any kind of retirement accounts. I have 2 retirement accounts right now, and I probably need more. Updated retirement plans. As you go along and retirement gets closer, the things you're doing with your retirement plan are going to be changing. So when you're young and you're putting your money into your retirement, you can invest that in kind of an aggressive way. And if the stock market goes up, that's great. And if it comes down, that's okay because you've got time. But as you get older, you need to get more conservative. So right here, update your retirement plan. Those investments need to change. The amount of money that you're putting in needs to increase though. So there are some changes that are going to happen. Repay those debts. So you see how this one doesn't really seem to go away. It's always just kind of there. So you're always going to kind of be working on it. It's a headache. Number 5, evaluate needs and wants, home, auto, family. So things are going to change. You might have some kids who are leaving the home and heading off to higher education. And so you might have paid off your home right now. And so you don't necessarily need to be paying money towards your home. Maybe you have an older car and that's all paid off too. That would be fantastic and great. So some of those things are going to change. Here you go. Here's what I was talking about. So I've got a couple of retirement accounts and there's tons. So I've got my 401k, but like I said, you might need an IRA and a Roth. Some of these things are going to be dealing with your money in different ways. And hopefully we'll spend some time talking about those and how they work with the pre-tax dollars and the post-tax dollars. 4 phases of saving and investing for retirement. You want to earn, then you want to save, you want to grow, and then you want to preserve. So that's what I was talking about with the conservativeness. As you get a little older, you want to make sure that you're not losing that money. When the stock market goes down, you don't want to lose any of your money. You want to just keep on preserving it. 4 college savings tips. Utilize college saving plans such as the 529. Apply for scholarships. Start at a community college. That's a big one. I actually started my college career at Oakland University and went there for 2.5 years before I transferred to Michigan State. And just that was a big savings. Don't take from your retirement savings. Never touch your retirement savings unless you absolutely have to. All right, now we're getting really close to the end here, people. Pre-retirement, 55 to 65. Consolidate assets. So what you want to do is you want to kind of bring, when we say assets, what we're talking about is money, and you're going to want to kind of bring those together so that they are nice and condensed and small. Like I was saying, I have 2 retirement accounts and I might need to get some more. At some point though, you're going to kind of need to bring that down so you have everything kind of under control. Investigate in retirement part-time income or voluntary work. This is the time when people are really kind of going through their checklist and they're thinking about, will I have enough money? Will I be able to afford retirement? Now that if I'm still kind of young, can I still do a little bit of work to kind of compensate for that money that I've saved up in my 401k? Evaluate expenses for retirement and current housing. So what you're doing is you're just kind of trying to make sure that everything is ship-shape and ready to go. So when you make that change. Meet responsibilities of aging parents. So now this is a crazy one. I am kind of starting to see the beginnings of this right now. But what you were talking about right here is that when you are getting older, your parents are getting older, and life expectancies are extending. So your parents might still be alive. And what's going to happen is that they are going to become more and more dependent on you. And so this is something that you're going to need to take in as well. So when you are young, you have some young children that you might be taking care of. And when you're older, you might have some older parents that you are now taking care of. The other thing is saving for children future events. This one's a tricky one. So you're going to get married, but your kids are going to get married, or you're not buying a house, but your kids are going to buy a house, or you're not going to have a baby, but your kids are going to have a baby. And so that's funny that like those things also just never kind of go away. So hopefully also I want you to notice something that did go away here is there's not debt here. So hopefully at this point you are debt free. You don't want to be paying off your debt with your retirement savings. This is just a little bit of a breakdown of what home care non-medical retirement looks like as opposed to joining a nursing home. So you can kind of compare those two pieces of information against each other. And like I said earlier, you got kind of like that pre-retirement checklist. There's lots of courses and things like that that will help you kind of look through it, but it is a very important thing. You want to make sure you got all your ducks in a row before you retire. All right, and then the last phase right here, retirement, 65 plus. So you are going to be retired for hopefully a very long time, and hopefully you've got lots of money to work with when you are retired. You're going to meet responsibilities of aging parents. So once again, you are going to have some parents that might need your help, and so you're going to want to make sure that you have the money that you need in order to help them out. Save for children future events. So now at this point, what you might have is you might have needs on both ends. You've got your older parents that you might be taking care of, and your you might also have some grandchildren and things like that that you need to take care of as well. Reevaluate living conditions and downsize. So now this one is a very tough one because a lot of times when you get to this point, you have bought this fancy house that you bought when you were young and you've raised your kids in it and you just think that this is the best home ever. And now you are going to need to maybe choose to sell it and buy a smaller home, a lonelier home, because there might only be two people that come and live there, you and your significant other. And so that's going to be a change. Think about spending in relationship to health. So when you are healthy, you don't have to spend as much money on taking care of yourself, and so you can use that money to have fun and do some fun things. But you also are going to want to make sure that you are ready to save some more of that money for later on down the line when you might be feeling as well. And then the last part, finalize that will. So you kind of set up that will when you are younger, and then it's going to evolve and change, and you're going to need to revisit it. And now this is kind of being the time when you kind of need to close it all up and be all done. And so we're going to make those final changes to that will. This one's a good one right here. I like this one a lot. How are you going to spend your money? So if you take a look, what you have is you have these ages that are going to start here at 50 and they're going to go all the way up to 85. And you want to take a look at how you're spending your money. So housing right here. Housing is pretty consistent. You might notice that it fluctuates a little bit, but it's in the mid to high 40s. Food is very consistent. Clothing is very consistent as well. Transportation is going to change. I want to talk about that one in a couple seconds. Entertainment, that one's going to change just a little bit. And you might not feel like going out so much when you're 85. More happy to stay home. The two that I really like to talk about are transportation. You might notice that transportation is going down, and that is because you might not have to pay for a brand new car loan. Also, you might just stop driving. You might not be transporting yourself around very much, and you might not be paying for those methods of transportation. The big one, though, is obviously this blue one right here, health. Health is going to go up, up, up. So once again, as I was saying, you are going to need to pay more money for healthcare when you are older and maybe not feeling so well. So that means right over here, when you are younger and feel a little bit more spry, you are going to want to make sure that you are not being too frivolous with your money. There you go. Okay, so that is our notes for today. We're going to do a little more work together, and hopefully you can find your perfect person to interview who has been through a majority of these pieces or phases of this financial life cycle, and you can gain some more information from the way that they've dealt with it. Thank you so much.